Okay, welcome everybody. It's an honor today to have been given the responsibility to share Toronto Outdoor Art Fair's gratitude as well as my own to the Indigenous communities and the original caretakers of the land that we're on today. Indigenous communities that have cared for this space and continue to be leading voices and advocates for the earth are incredibly important pieces of our communities that deserve a lot of respect and a lot of recognition. And so today I come to you. My name is Madeline. I'm a settler colonizer in so-called Canada, and I'm joining you today from the unceded and stolen land of many named and unnamed peoples. This land is part of Treaty 13, and it also falls within the Dish with One Spoon covenant. Something that comes to mind in this digital space is, to me at least, is this sort of interconnectedness or a recognition of how we join across great expanses of land, and how we're all sort of joining today from places that have very different histories, very different current environments, and different shared futures. And so these shared futures is something that occupies my brain a lot. And I find myself urging my own brain and the people around me to try and shift our gratitude towards actionable, tangible things when we move forward and when we put our energy towards building a shared future that's better and safer for all of us. So I remind myself and I remind all of us today to take that minute to share in that gratitude and to push ourselves to responsibly join one of the incredible numbers of Indigenous-led initiatives in our own communities, and to really get out there and appreciate the space that we have been gifted with, a space to create art in. So with that, I thank you all for being here and for joining us, and I will pass it off to Abby. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madeline. Toronto Outdoor Art Fair is so excited to welcome this group of talented artists to the Digital Art Talk with our partners at StreetARToronto. TOEF and StreetARToronto have been collaborating to bring more artists and more programming to the fair this year. And so we are very excited to continue working alongside such a rich and thoughtful organization. Now I will hand it over to our moderator for the talk, Paul Aloisi.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for that wonderful introduction and land acknowledgement. And so welcome, here we are. Yes, I'm Paul Aloisi, and today we are joined by Danielle Hyde, Christopher Ross, and Monica Wickler, all artists involved with StreetARToronto and the TOEF Fair this year. So the theme or the subject of our discussion today, this sort of artist talk, we'll try and have an informal kind of talk, is think outside the canvas, or think beyond the canvas. And you know, visitors coming to the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair might be familiar with how to access artwork to put on the walls of their homes or businesses, etc., but maybe less familiar with how to commission artwork for outdoor spaces or public-facing walls that they may own or have access to. So that's sort of the theme of where we'll go in discussing public art and mural art with our guest artists today. So we'll start out with about a minute or two from each artist. We'll look at a few images of their work just to get a bit of a background of who it is that we're speaking with today. And the first artist that I'd like to introduce and pass the mic to is Danielle Hyde. Welcome.
Hello. As Paul mentioned, my name is Danielle Hyde. I am an interdisciplinary Indigenous artist, curator, and educator. So I work under Co-Creations Art, but I also work with Red River Nation artists, and we are a collective of Indigenous artists working in and beyond the city of Toronto and the GTA. I am a muralist, painter, graphic designer, and photographer, and so the works are like just showing the blend of different mediums that I use and I work in. And everything is an invitation to see ourselves as four-dimensional beings, and really explore this idea of how we can relate to the world in a more ethical way. So that ethical relationality with the world around us, and how we can see ourselves connecting through mind, body, heart, and spirit, really operating in a more creative chorus with the world around us. So these works are those invitations, those windows of opportunity to engage in shared understanding, and how we can together really remember art's fundamental generosity, but also its strength and power to support us in daily wellness. So connecting to that mental health as well, all these things as medicines critical to our well-being. So yeah, just creating through all those mediums, coming from that place of shared compassion and that foundation of understanding is where all the work comes from. And I'm really honored to be here today with everyone and so many wonderful panelists today. So yeah, gonna pass on the mic because I want to get to the talking.
Great. Danielle, many layers to your work. So curious to see how we go about revealing more of those layers through our talk. And then we're going to shift over here to introduce our second panelist is Christopher Ross, another very talented artist with us today. So here you go, Chris.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Like you said, my name's Christopher Ross. I'm from Montreal. I guess painting and drawing were sort of my quiet time growing up, and basically serve my same purpose nowadays. I spent a lot of time kind of roaming around the city, painting on stuff. And that eventually led to meeting other like-minded people, doing do-it-yourself kind of little art shows, and then eventually walls and murals, and working with galleries. And yeah, I basically practice painting every day. And I currently now live in Vancouver, where I continue the same journey, I suppose. Yeah, glad to be here.
Great, thanks for sharing. Really interesting evolution of your practice from something so personal and then out into the public. And then our third artist here will be Monica Wickler. Take it away, Monica.
Hey. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here today. My name is Monica Wickler. I'm a queer Luxembourg Canadian artist with a passion for public art. I was originally trained in the craft of hand-painted outdoor advertising, and I moved my practice to a community-based public art installations, as you see in these photos. Recently, I've been exploring the idea of collaborating with other artists. Being an artist, even a public artist, can be super insular, and I really love the vibe that happens when I collaborate with other artists. Also really focus on reclaiming spaces, public spaces, and giving that space back to the community by engaging them in the art that I'm creating. So yeah, super happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, we're all coming from such different sort of origins in our creative practices, and we've all seemed to have met here crossing paths through public art and StreetARToronto. So there's many things, many directions we could take our discussion today. But why don't we just kick it off here, sort of open mic style together. And I'll just start it with a question. Are there any ways in which you approach your work differently when working in public space, as contrasted to something that might be destined for a more private environment? And anyone can grab the mic and sort of jump into that.
I mean, I think for me, when I'm creating, and I don't know if you guys find this as well, but when I'm not in my studio and I'm actually in the public, like it becomes a collaboration with the entire community. Like you have a voice suddenly, right? So there's a responsibility. I mean, I don't take myself too seriously, but it's a pretty amazing opportunity to be able to create something that is going to impact people, whether they're walk by it every day to go to school or to work. Yeah, how do you guys feel about that?
For me, generally, I feel like the process is very similar because a lot of my process is acknowledging all the seen and unseen beings that sort of are involved in creation. So even like so much as honoring the water and the paint and the air sort of as are being active agents. That's why everything is co-created, it's co-authored. So I am never the sole author of a piece of work. I kind of get away or really am critical of this idea of like mastery because of historically where that comes from and how that really contributes, I think, to silencing more voices and narratives. So even in work that would be considered, I guess, more private, it's that those voices are still there. So there's always that input. It's always about community. And even when a piece of artwork on a smaller scale, on a more movable scale is being created, we still I think carry that really important role as storytellers. We're always those storytellers, and we're always
100%.
connecting all those elements to translate and to communicate. So it's very similar, but I also hear what you're like, there is sort of that additional like energy, I think, that comes when we're doing public art because it's the public is present for the whole transformation process because we're usually outside, and so they get to see things they might not necessarily get to see in a work that's created in studio,
and also
and
see it being created. Like sometimes
Yeah.
the magic happens, Danielle, when they're walking past you while you're creating this piece. I mean, sometimes I jump into artist jams. Chris, I don't know if you've ever done an artist jam where you're kind of all in the laneway and you're painting together. It's kind of like musicians jamming. Like when people walk by and see that, I just feel like, even like sometimes when I witness it, there's something special.
Certainly
Yeah.
energy there. And I think there's unavoidable things that are going to make the situations completely different. I do love that kind of magic you're talking about with the jams. I think I prefer to kind of keep it similar where I could be in my bubble while I'm creating, but then a lot of magic does happen with the public passing by. For example, I'll give a quick one of when I did the Runnymede mural. There was an elderly lady. I think there was a rehab center there. There was a lot of people going to get rehab. And this one lady would cross my path quite often. We started talking, and then she wanted to know if I could paint a goat. And I was like, I can't really switch the sketch up. But then she explained she had a goat when she was a child, and it made her so happy, blah, blah, blah. So I did a tiny little goat at the end of the mural, and like this lady was like, she tried to give me $20, you know, she was blown away.
I love that.
But it was a sweet moment, you know, like there's a beauty of the outdoors.
There's a real energy exchange.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear you guys discuss how not only a site and sort of the site specific conditions of where you're working, but the context of where you're working beyond the built environment and architecture, but to the people who occupy that space and use that space. So while still sort of holding sort of, your own artistic rigor and bringing what you have to offer as a creative person to the table and interweaving it into the context that you're finding. Interesting connections there. Any other aspects of that? So producing work in public space, this is something that has now become, I guess, a repeating aspect of what you guys are pursuing creatively. I sort of hear ideas about sort of public education or education in a larger breadth in connecting with the public from you guys. I guess in thinking about working with the public, having a partner in producing an image for public space, is there any advice you might give someone looking to commission an artist for a public mural? Some important things to consider, or?
I mean, I think we've had a little bit of a discussion about this earlier, where we talked about how it's really important to hire somebody with the authenticity that you're looking for. So to look for an artist that is going to represent reclaiming the space that you're trying to reclaim, right? You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Certainly.
there should be, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll go. Danielle, please.
No, take it away, Danielle.
I was going to say that having that connection is definitely there, and making sure that there's a good relationship, because you're hiring, you know, you're trusting, and there has to be some kind of trust there, and an ability and connection with what work the artist likes to create. I think that's all really, really important.
Yeah, also, right, Danielle, like I'm thinking, you know, if Pride is hiring somebody to paint one of the floats, that potentially they're going to hire a queer artist, and you know, so on and so forth. So to look for an artist that represents what you're trying to achieve, and I think with that comes some authenticity. I think that's what I was trying to say. So when, you know, when somebody has a space to public facing space that they're thinking about putting imagery, not only like hiring an artist that, you know, has a history of success with producing a piece on time and on budget and all of those fun things, but finding a person that you think is going to represent your vision. And yeah, I think that's really important too. There's so many artists across the world that yeah, and why not hire a few of them and get a collaboration going?
Sure. So I guess you're referencing clients who may already have an ambition of what they'd like to represent out into the public realm, right? You spoke about responsibility, you know, themes of co-authorship and jamming and collaboration. From Chris or Danielle, any words of advice to a potential client, perhaps one that doesn't know what they want their mural to be about?
I think an ideal situation is when someone contacts me knowing my work. You know, I think it's kind of wise, even if you don't know a specific artist you like, you could research and find, you know, something you like, and then basically trust the artist. You know, I would give 100% different advice to a new muralist. I would say you're gonna have to accept, you're gonna have to listen to what they say and paint outside your box. But for the person commissioning it, I say the opposite. I say trust the artist and give them 100. If you love that artist, 100% leeway, you know, and that's it. If you don't like it, get another artist.
I agree. Oh my God, I agree so much with that, Chris. I love that sentiment so much.
In the same way that you'd want to trust a plumber, right? You leave them to their work and come back and everything's going to be flowing smooth, right? Danielle, thoughts on that?
Yeah, very similar sentiments. I think what it really comes down to is having a relationship. So again, coming to like knowing somewhat of the work, but really having that relationship there and that understanding and on both sides of it, both as sort of the client and as the artist, and sort of leaving space in your cup for the other person as you kind of come together and try and on something that's really going to be beneficial for everyone.
Awesome, because it is a pretty big commitment, right? To sort of hand over the rights of authorship to an image on your building, right?
Yeah, I think if I could just add to that, I think also it's really important to be super direct, you know, like at the very beginning, like make the mission clear from the beginning, and then there's less complications, you know.
Absolutely. Sure, because, you know, expectations, they can vary, they can change, they can shift, right?
And
So
I
it's
think
good.
some of the basic things like that, if we're going to talk about kind of the production value of it, some of the basic things that are really good to clear up right out of the beginning is like, color palettes and themes. And, you can present a sketch and a drawing, but if they want specific, color palettes, just to get that right out in the open right away, I think that's good advice. Yeah.
Expectation management from the beginning. Right.
So what are some of the current projects that you guys are painting this summer? Danielle, I think you may have just finished up a project out in Scarborough.
Yeah, one project out in Scarborough we just did was involved in the Conlin cycle track. That's running up along Conlins Road. But also in addition to that, right now, we're currently priming and painting at the new Albert Campbell Library. They've done a whole transformation on the space. It's really, really amazing what they've done. They've dug out like the whole building, and they've installed all these really bright like big glass windows, and they've redone like the ceilings and roof sections, and it's just phenomenal. So we're really honored to sort of be there and create a mural that's going to go and run along where they've started an indigenous garden that's been installed by Minicon, and carry that into the building. So transforming, bringing the outside to the inside in for the children's area that's going to be in there. So we're really looking forward to doing that as well, coming up in a few weeks, and also doing work for the new Centennial College building that's currently still being built at One Progress, and doing the acoustic panels. So there are two artists, myself and one other artist, Dakota Brandt, that is working to tell the creation story across these ceiling panels that will be going up across 2 floors. So you'll have the Anishinaabe story going one way and the Haudenosaunee going the other. So we're really excited for those panels as well. So that project as well, that will be really great. And
Super busy.
Super busy, yeah. And we're going to be excited to be painting with Ren Lonechild at the Bickford Center as well for the Just Us call. So lots of painting.
Nice.
We're everywhere.
I love Ren. Say hi to Ren for me. I love Ren.
I will. Ren's a sweetie. I'll pass on the message. His ears are burning somewhere. He's got his like giant Doctor Who mug somewhere, and he's sipping coffee. He's like, "Oh, I know she's talking about me. I hear it."
Nice. And do you want to just sort of outline how you went about getting one of those commissions? Like the library project, was there a call for artists, or how did your client find you?
It was sort of, we work with Minicon in that, so they install like the indigenous gardens, and often whenever they're installing these gardens, there's often a wall and sort of, and vice versa. So if there's a space for a garden and we're working on trying to get a wall, we do like the vice versa for them. And so it's sort of like having those community connections really matters, and really, considering and looking out for other people and other artists whenever opportunities like seem available. It's, having everybody sort of in the back of mind, because we really want everybody to do well. And things can be kind of competitive, which is why I think it's extra important that we're looking out for each other as artists and as collectives, so that we can sort of make sure that everybody's sort of getting involved and being involved in community. So really it was a matter of Minicon was installing this garden, and they were speaking to like all the people involved at Albert Campbell, and it was sort of like they had never commissioned a mural before. They had no idea how to like what do we do, how do we go about this. And so it's sort of been this sort of whole process where we've sort of been working very much directly with them. So it's myself, Ren, and Angela Alu sort of coming together and really like looking at their proposals and giving them a fee proposal, and we're sort of like all working together to kind of pull this whole project together and going ahead and painting it. So it's really an interesting like supportive relationship. A different example is when we painted at Christie Gardens, where it was really a matter of noticing how damaged the murals had become over the years of the pandemic, and just sort of being like in a heartfelt and authentic way, reaching out to the retirement center that's there and just being like, it really hurts our hearts to see this work like this. What can we do? And from then we were, it went from like just kind of doing it like voluntarily because there was so much, everything was in such disrepair, to like, no, the working with the sort of the foundation, the Christie Gardens Foundation, and getting that support to pay the artists and to get supplies and things like that, and restore those murals. So sometimes it's just sort of a matter of just seeing something that could happen and just sort of connecting from like a good place and just an authentic place. And you would probably be surprised at how positively that can be responded to, and if someone's really not interested, then that's probably not someone you want to be working with anyways. So it kind of works out both ways, that everybody's sort of upfront. But yeah, just two different, I guess, like ways of approaching it. It's sort of like
through different interpersonal relationships and existing relationship that you had, and one that you sought out further. And that underpass that you mentioned, had seen quite a bit of vandalism over an existing mural. So if there's that leads me to think of an opportunity from Street Art Toronto for any property owners who may have had their property or walls vandalized or whatnot over the years, or if there's recurring vandalism. There is some funding available for property owners, up to $2,000 for materials for the artist. So there is some incentive there to go partner up with an artist and get that wall repainted, right? So that's the Street Art Toronto support mural program. So connecting with clients, those sound like opportunities mostly that you sort of initiated through existing contacts. Anyone else want to sort of describe a process of getting a public facing wall that they're working on this summer or worked on recently? Monica or Chris?
Go for it, Chris.
Mine's kind of a weird one. I just there's like a yoga studio on the way to my daughter's school that's all decayed and whatever, so I just hit them up and I paint a bunch of dinosaurs because my daughter likes dinosaurs. And yeah, I don't know, approaching buildings it's kind of hard. People have to kind of want it, it's hard to convince. Back in the day I had, I just make friends with the community and then paint those, get in like that. But now I'm in Vancouver, I don't really know many people, so, and I'm also not, hitting up a building trying to get money. It's not easy. They got to want to like do a project kind of, but this dinosaur thing's cool. I hit them up and we're going to get a little bit of funding, so that's fun. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Sorry. What was I going to say? Another way for, you had mentioned Street Art Toronto, another way for people to sort of have a look in Toronto at a base of artists. They have an artist roster on their website. So if somebody's interested in hiring an artist, they can always visit the Toronto Street Art roster of artists. Yeah, I think that on a personal level, the most difficult thing sometimes is finding a wall to paint. I might have funding and an idea, and finding a wall with permission from the property owner can be the biggest hurdle. It's crazy. So if property owners have a wall that they're feeling like would benefit from some public art, 100% step forward. And even if a project doesn't get done this season, sometimes the funding in Toronto anyways, the funding might come through the later part of the season for early spring of the next season. So instead of getting it done immediately, like hold on to hope, and potentially it might happen next year.
Yeah, it's never too soon to start laying roots on a potential future project, right? So this is sort of, I guess, a little bit of a call out to people with influence over walls, whether you're the owner of a wall or whether you work at a location where you see a wall that would just be dying for a mural. There are artists out here looking to paint those. And this sort of brings us to ideas, I guess, of representation and the greater diversity of representation and imagery in public space. Does anyone want to make sort of some final comments in our talk here? We've got about 5 minutes left about sort of the importance of, through public art, establishing a greater array of voices in the public realm.
I think Monica was saying earlier, where you're just saying like representation really matters. You're right. I think that it's important to make sure that we're reaching out to each other and connecting with each other and giving space to hear those stories and let people convene sort of different knowledges and different ways of telling stories and representing stories in different spaces. I'm sure, Monica, you have so many things to say to that.
I mean, I 100% agree. Yeah, I think you've totally touched on it. I think that invite the artist in that you think represents that space, and it's so important to represent diversity and the diversity of stories that we have to tell. So yeah, dig around and find that artist that represents the story that you want to speak to on your space.
Certainly. So how would the public go about finding each of you? Is Instagram a good place to find each of you, or?
100% Instagram, Monica on the Moon, the planet.
And Danielle, where can we find you and see a bit more about your work?
Co-creation_art on Instagram, but also Red Urban Nation Artist as well. So both there and through our collective as well. We're always excited to hear from people.
Great. And Chris, where can we find you online?
Yeah, Instagram works. Call me up, whatever. Like when we were doing this talk, that's what some of the comments were, that people were intimidated to reach out to an artist to do a wall. And I think that's kind of crazy, because I think any artist, we want to get our little egos flattered, and we want to feel, we want to paint your walls. So don't be shy. Come knock at my door. I'll paint your walls.
Absolutely.
We're always there.
knocking.
We've got paint in stock. We're ready. Just give us a call.
We're ready to go. Amazing. So we're going to wrap up here. We've had a good about a half hour together. So thank you so much to all three of you, to Danielle Hyde, to Monica Wickler, and to Stephen Ross. Look forward to seeing more of your work at the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair and on a wall near me in my neighborhood, hopefully soon. And to our viewers, to the public, we're looking forward to seeing you guys this year at the 61st edition of the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair. It'll be happening online and in person until the 17th of July, 2022. So thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, looking forward to seeing more of your art in the public space. Take care.
Take care. Looking forward to seeing everyone.